Hello, Canelo. It's Jeff Navarez with another coffee chat, our last one of this series for the 2024 city elections. This is for place four, and we have two great guests today. To my top left, we have Chris Gary, and in the bottom, we have Councilman Bryant Griffith. How you guys doing?
Good morning, Jeff.
Doing good. Thanks for having us here.
Excellent. For those of you at home who haven't seen the other previous ones, each candidate has sent in three questions. Each candidate will answer all the questions, and then I have one at the end, and then we'll give them time at the end of our question series to kind of give you guys your pitch, and you can find out where they are located online. So we'll just jump right in here. I know you guys have some timing issues today, so the first question is Chris's to Bryant. Bryant, as a current council member, what steps do you take along with all the partner council members to take to ensure transparency and accountability in the city council's decision-making process to the public, along with valuing their input in those decisions?
That's a great question. Thanks for that, Chris. So there's kind of a lot of different aspects to answering this question. One, when it comes to accountability to the public, I think it's important. A lot of times we have access to information or we're working together on things and we kind of have a lot more details and knowledge on what's going on with that circumstance. And so to be more transparent and accountable on how we make our decisions, I think it's important that while we're on the dais that we create dialogue. It's really easy to get on the dais and kind of know where you sit on something and forget to ask questions that you might already know the answers to. But I think by doing that, creating dialogue, you're kind of involving the public and giving them an opportunity to hear some of the information that you might already have or to explore some things that you've worked on with fellow council. So I think that's one way in particular. On the other side of that same coin, when it comes to transparency and accountability within the council and between members, I think it's important to ask each other hard questions. You can't be afraid to stand in front of things. You can't be afraid to confront issues that we're going to have to address, whether they're personal or they impact the entire city or just one neighborhood. It's important to have the dialogue. It's important to ask the hard questions, even when it's uncomfortable. We've experienced some of that just this last, since July. There was a lot of challenging conversations that had to happen. Good examples when there were some allegations, there was mistrust. The public wanted some answers rather than hide from it or not address it. I think it's important as a standard I hold myself to. But I also encourage my fellow council to also hold that same standard. When people have questions, you answer them. It's really that simple. That's how you stay transparent and accountable. And I do that across the board. I did that when we addressed TGAA. I did it when we addressed the allegations that came before us. I've done that with four members of the council. And it's important that we walk through that, with confidence and without, preventing the conversation from happening.
There's one guarantee that you hold us all accountable,
Right.
even me. Chris, just a little variation of your own question. If you were on council, what steps would you take? And then the question that you asked.
Yeah, you kind of ruined my first thing there. I'm unfortunately not on the council this time, but first and foremost, I feel like we're servants of the people, the residents of Kennedale. Unfortunately, I feel like the current council, city manager, and city attorney seems to be a lot of decision making that's done in executive session, which I understand what Griffith was saying. There's some things that have to be private, but I do think there needs to be a lot more transparency out in open space where some of the residents can feel comfortable with what's going on as a total picture. So I would push for more shared public session, and that just not try to leave everything in the dark to some people. Changes made after the fact and things like that. So that's where that would be my big push as far as transparency there.
I would totally agree with that. Absolutely. All right, next question. Chris, you get to start this one up. Among the candidates, there's been a lot of talk about economic development for Kennedale. What experience do you have that will empower you to tackle this challenge How exactly do you plan to foster economic development, and what steps will you take to support the small businesses already in Kennedale? Good question.
Okay. Well, currently I have over, as of right now, 25 years of business development in the retail banking and auto services business with three different major companies. One of my main responsibilities on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is to foster and grow relationships with those companies and help them increase their market share as well as my company's market share and profitability. First, I think we need to meet and discuss with these new businesses at inception and find out what will help them be successful and be profitable in this market. We need to get a detailed idea of what they need from the city, and we need to try to do that part to help them out as much as we can. Next, I believe we need to streamline our processes for attracting new businesses. I've heard the mentioned fast track. I read up on that a little bit. I don't know if we could do a fast track program here in Kennedale, but we need to streamline some of the red tape to get those fast tracked and get them in the door and get them starting to grow their business as well as grow our customer base as far as Kennedale tax dollars, things like that. And finally, the most important aspect, I think, is we need to really concentrate on our current businesses. I know I see posts from a lot of council people, city people, going to the taco truck and some of the places over in the town center and things like that. But we need to do a better job of not just visiting and posting. We need to do some detailed follow up with them, find out what problems they're seeing, what problems they're having. Spend 30 minutes, an hour with them and see if there's anything the city can do, not just financially or, tax burden wise or anything, but anything we can do to make their job easier so they can make more money, which benefits the city of Kennedale when taxes and things come along down the road. So that's my feeling.
All right, great. Yeah, hashtag shop local, right? Bryant, same
Yeah,
question.
sure.
So specifically with this question, I want to highlight the importance of community. So there's a lot of talk about streamlining processes, cutting red tape, and those things are phenomenal ideas. And I recently went to the Council of Mayors. It was a small business roundtable, and in there was a wealth of knowledge and experience in the room. And there were a lot of ideas, and a lot of them talked about process, not just cutting the red tape, but having somebody physically present that can help new businesses actually traverse the process. Because some of it is also you can't know what you don't know. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I've been in business for 3 years. I was raised by my father, also an entrepreneur family. So I understand the hardships of starting new ventures and also sustaining the growth of current ventures. So I talk about community because, there's a lot of things that can be done in Kennedale aside just from serving on council or as mayor or any way like that. We have a chamber of commerce. It needs membership. It needs growth. It needs people to come and participate. We can create programs and we can streamline processes, but if people aren't engaging in the resources that are there, you're not really going to get anywhere. And the only way that happens is when we link arms together and do that. And another part of that community is networking. So, just like Chris said, he's been in his industry for many years. I'm sure he has a wealth of contacts, investors, business owners, developers. So that's kind of one of the things I bring to the table. I have a very large network all over DFW, very strong network in Arlington. And I'm constantly leveraging that to bring support to Kennedale, to bring new ideas, new businesses, and also trying to help businesses that are currently in Kennedale. And so, I serve on the EDC right now. I'm an ambassador at the chamber. And then in Arlington, I'm the vice chair of the Veterans Business Council. There's a lot of resources there, a lot of information, knowledge, and experience and things that I can bring to the table that I can help pour into the chamber. In the EDC, we've got a grant process that's been established. And so it's just a matter of getting that information out there, but also having somebody who can help people access the resources and then walk through the process.
I think it's important to know that whatever we enact takes years to see the results, and that's the one thing I've learned of my decade of service for Kennedale. It's you poke here, but you won't see it for a couple of years usually. All right,
That's
next
right.
question. We're moving along pretty good. Bryant, you answer this one first. In the past year, three council members have resigned, which has resulted in a major change in council philosophy on where the city should be going. What strategies do you use to build a consensus among members of the city council, and how do you handle disagreements between yourself and other members of the city council during the decision-making process?
Yeah, that's another great question, Chris. Appreciate that one. So I kind of touched on this a little bit in my previous response. What we do is hard. There's a lot of times where council members might not see eye to eye on things, but I also think that's what makes it so great. So the real challenge is whether or not we can work together. We have to be humble enough to navigate challenging situations and have hard conversations. We can't choose not to show up. We can't choose not to speak on issues. I mean, that's literally what we're running for, is to be the voice for people. And if we can't have those hard conversations and we can't stand in front of it, then there's no way to build a consensus. We don't have to agree on everything. I'd offer it's actually better a lot of times when we don't, because sometimes our differing opinions will bring about maybe something that we hadn't considered. And so for me, how I encourage that is just being the one to ask the hard questions. And sometimes that makes you unpopular. Sometimes people don't necessarily like that. But nonetheless, I think it's important. It's extremely important to be able to ask the hard questions and then to have the conversation and to listen to each other and work through things. As I've said, we kind of jokingly, Jeff said, I will hold you accountable. I'll hold myself accountable. I consider myself more or less to be an accountability partner, not just for the council members that I serve with, but also for the community. And the only way to do that is to be able to have the hard conversations.
Absolutely. All right, Chris, if you were on council, what strategies would you use to build consensus among members?
Sure. Well, first of all, I like to try to go into every negotiation, contrary to belief maybe out there, that reminded myself that I don't know everything. We got to remember that everything affects everyone differently, whether it's residential, whether it's business, whether it's whatever's going on at that time. We need to realize that more than anything, that everybody's affected differently. When I go into any type of negotiation, whether it would be with the council member, with the city manager, residents, whoever, I like to try to prioritize the pros and cons of every situation. How that'll affect, who it'll affect, the number of people it'll affect, things of that nature. And one thing that I do believe is it needs to be a well-informed final decision. I don't think we should be rushed in anything. Like Jeff said earlier, we make a decision now and we don't see the results for years to come. So that's how important it is to make sure that whatever decision we make sure that it's the best for the long term of the city of Kennedale. And if it's not, and if it's feasible, let's push it down the road another 30 days or 20 days or whatever until we can have another meeting so everybody can get their facts right. All five council members, the residents of Kennedale, whoever it is. So that's how I would handle that, I think.
Yeah, I love living in a state where our government meets every other year. And there's no other state that actually does that. At the same time, as a citizen, I love that. At the same time, as a councilman, it's kind of annoying. We meet once a month because it takes forever. And you guys both know, Parks has been in my hearts for years. It took me 8 years to get a jungle gym at Sonora Park. And just for the matter of fact that we have, council only meeting once a month, which is a great thing, but that's the results of it all. Okay, great answers from both of you. This one's for you, Chris, to start off. Strategic residential development. And you guys use big words. Strategic residential development seems to be agreeable among candidates, though there are quite some differences in what kind of development will be allowed. Using the recent TH zoning change approvals as an example, what would you have done differently and how do you plan to address the future residential developments? Great question.
Pretty much, I'm pretty brief on this one just because I think first and foremost, as we all know, I don't believe that the Kennedale residents have a desire for much more high density residential, whether that's apartments, townhomes, multifamily lots, things like that. Especially with the limited property that we have left to develop in this city. I think that's maybe less than 10, 12, 15%. So we need to be strategic on what we do. Uh, First and foremost, if I was elected, and I know there's always pros and cons to this, but if I was elected, I would, consider the safety of our residents first. Traffic limitations, street size, entrances, major road accessibility, and the long-term cost to our system. Infrastructure strains. Obviously, we're going through infrastructure strains here in Kennedale. But and the big thing to me is the infrastructure and the development costs and the increased costs for our public services, whether it's water, fire, police, EMT. We need to make sure that we realize that that's going to be a long-term cost or effect on our residents, whether it's taxes, whether it's response times, whatever it is. We need to realize that every one of our decisions as far as development, whether it's residential, apartments, townhomes, that it has a long term effect, and most importantly, we need, I feel like, to listen to the people's voice on that. So,
All right.
hopefully, it's not too drawn out for you.
No, perfect. Bryant?
Yeah, I don't think I would have done anything differently, to be honest with you. We worked, not just myself, but prior council too has worked very hard to kind of review the UDC, make necessary adjustments to give ourselves the tools that we need to employ strategy with some of this growth, kind of like Chris was saying. So with the UDC and the comprehensive plan, there's a lot of work that's gone into that, and more importantly, input from the citizens themselves. And the comprehensive plan is our vision for Kennedale's future. Everything has its proper place, and specifically on high density, low density. I know those are sensitive subjects. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. They don't, they want to politic. They don't want to shoot straight to it. Well, if you want to get straight to it, as far as infrastructure goes, there's efficiency points, and we haven't met them yet. So when we look at our taxes and we say we want lower taxes, well, one of the strategies in there is increasing your tax base. Mm-hmm. If you have a low tax base, it's impossible for you to drive your tax rate down. It's just not going to happen. And right now where we sit, our infrastructure can handle a great deal of growth, and it needs to. And that goes hand in hand with economic development. You have to feed your businesses. You don't have buyers, you won't have businesses. That simple. It's just really that simple. So when we look at, long-term costs, we look at working on our infrastructure, increasing economic development, lowering our tax rate. These things are in the plus column. These things are going to help us accomplish those things. And that's kind of the strategy right now. Now, and Chris was very pointed on strategy, and things do belong in the right place. And that's why it's important for us to focus intently on our comprehensive plan and where we're approving these things and not approving these things. But all that adds up to kind of my final point, which is something I've said repeatedly. I'll never infringe on anybody's individual rights. And at the end of the day, property owners have rights. It's that simple. And that's one thing the citizens can count on me for. Whether it's an individual property owner or an individual who has an issue, no matter what happens, I'm always going to advocate for their rights. And so with that, it kind of goes back to community when we talked about helping businesses earlier. I had said, if we want to drive the kind of growth that we want, it's all hands on deck. People can reach into their networks. They don't have to be on council. They don't have to be on a board. You go out there, a developer, someone, tell them about a property that's coming up for sale. Tell them about your vision for Kennedale, and go out there and encourage them to come be part of our community. If it's the right people and they have the right products and that's what we want, then we have to get out there and bring it in.
I think it's important that everybody understands that we're coming up to 20 years when Kennedale first decided to, start the growth program. And one of the biggest things was, well, why aren't we growing? So they hired a company, spent millions of dollars for a company to give a list of things that Kennedale can check off that will help growth. And for me, I came 4 years after that. What I see is as Kennedale checked each one of these markers off, creating a master plan, for example, was one of those 10 top things that we saw the growth that the city was wanting. And in the end, we do want things like roads and parks. Me personally, I like both of those. And it's just good to see that even though with the growing pains we've had the last 20 years as the identity of Kennedale, but we've also put out there in the greater community what Kennedale is. A lot of people didn't know what Kennedale was. When I grew up and I'm a graduate from Arlington High, this was the junkyard area. I had no idea it was called Kennedale growing up until I moved here. And so I think it's been important for past council and mayors to move forward with the plans, the master plans, and keeping it updated, but also just kind of throwing it out there that Kennedale's on the map and we're here to stay. And I think the other day I heard a developer say this, which is something that I'm really chewing on. He said, "Don't build what you want, build what the market needs, or otherwise you'll be left behind." And so that's something that I've been sleeping on for the last couple of days since I heard that. All right, we're almost done. Let's go to the next question. Bryant, this is for you. With the recent public back and forth about the property value increase last year and how it affected our citizens' annual tax burden, what 3 steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing while looking for ways to minimize the impact on property taxes for Kennedale citizens? Three examples.
Yeah, that's another great question. Appreciate that, Chris. First, I just want to start by saying our city is in we're much better financially than we've been in a while. And I say that we've been able to address deficits, infrastructure needs. We've got a lot of projects going on, a lot of projects that are getting completed. Public safety is getting the attention it needs. Our staffing needs are being met. I know in the past we've had a hard time filling our staff, and right now with the budget that we approved before for this year, we've got a lot of funding going into systems and equipment to bring us up to speed. So a lot of good things are being done. All of those things were able to be done without increasing the tax rate. So just wanted to start with that. And as far as the steps I would take, just continuing the strategy. Again, we put a lot of work into the budget, and there were a lot of conversations. We took a hard look at where we could make cuts. You just got to look at everything at face value where we're at. And at the time, like I said, addressing the deficits, working on infrastructure, all of these things, and employing strategy, just continuing with that. There's not, maybe focusing. So one of the things I would do is maybe add strategy to where we're focusing on development. So I talked about inviting developers, investors, being a little more strategic and focusing on areas that are going to help us the most. So some of those areas would be town center. That needs to be finished out. It needs to be developed. That's going to help generate some tax revenue. The Bowman Springs area, Oak Crest, and so again, if we just continue to employ the strategies we have and focusing on those areas, I think that's how we're going to put ourselves in the best financial position, and for future tax relief. Kind of like the senior tax freeze that we've been discussing, and future property tax cuts.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was 3. Chris?
Well, first of all, just to kind of, what Brian said a minute ago about, obviously since the 2016-17, we've made tremendous strides as far as the fiscal responsibility of our city. But I think we need to do keep working on that, get better at that, make sure that, that we're doing what's best for our tax-paying residents. That's the first thing. Is even though we made some strides, we need to continue to get better. As Brian said, every year it's getting better. So that's first and foremost to me, is make sure we do that. For me personally, second, we're looking over the budget over the last year or two. We need to make sure that if we budget something for a certain expenditure, we do a better job of keeping it to that expenditure that's budgeted for. I know emergencies come up. I believe there's an emergency fund, $250,000, $500,000, whatever we put in for emergency situations. But it's hard to do, but we've got to stick to what the budget is, because that's what we put out there to people. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can in that timely manner, whether it's to get, certain equipment done, certain, like he said, infrastructure done. We need to get that in that time frame done, so that we can make sure that we're kind of being held accountable or showing accountability to our residents and our taxpayers. And then third, as we've already talked about, a couple of different questions that we've asked each other. We need to make it a priority to increase our tax revenue through business development, not just rooftops. I believe right now, I think I was watching one of the other coffee chats, I think with Brad and Jan. I think y'all were talking about throwing out 75% of our tax income comes from residential property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that's always going to be the major part of our tax burden, but we need to work hard to get that closer to that 50-50 range, 60-40 range, so that we're taking some of that burden off. Like Brian said, there are a lot of things we've got to make sure it's feasible for a company to come here. We got to make sure infrastructure is in place, things like that. But we got to make that a priority again to alleviate some of that burden. So, thank you.
Both great answers. I always think that since I've been around that council, no matter who was on it, it's been fiscally responsible for it, all except for 2019, where they made a budget for at one tax rate, and then the very next vote, they reduced the tax rate. And so we were quickly going into the black moving into 2020. And luckily, thankfully, we had COVID. And actually, COVID saved our butts from going too far into the black. So since then, I think, council has corrected that, and we have a great savings. And, but I think the biggest issue is, if we wait too long on certain things, like we pay politics, or we want to get voted in, so we're going to say reduce the tax rate. But as you can see, in the last few years, we've done more road work than we had the last 8. But one of the problems is that what it cost us just 5 years ago has quadrupled in price. For example, we pulled the $14 million this year to do the sewer infrastructure from the lake all the way down to the racetracks. That was $4 million just 6 years ago, and now it's 14. And I don't think anybody could have predicted that the inflation values that's gone up. But if we drag our feet or play politics, I think this is what's going to happen. This is kind of like the punishment for that. We should always be on top of it if we're fiscally responsible. If we have a good savings, I think any conservative who like myself will say, okay, we have good savings. We need stuff done. We have some extra money. Let's get some stuff done. And I think that's what this council's done. The previous council has done as well. And the one before that has done a good job about moving forward, about kind of dislodging where we've been stuck and moving forward. All right, just a few more left, guys. This is for Chris first. During the last budgeting process, the council was faced with a great challenge in addressing the tax rate. Do you believe we should have dropped the tax rate? And if so, where would you have made budget cuts?
Well, contrary to popular belief, I'm not sure that reducing the tax rate last year or every year is feasible, but increasing it, I think, like we did, was not warranted. Some will say that we're trying to make up for, you just talked about infrastructure neglect, facility shortcomings, city staffing. But again, we must be cognizant of our spending, I believe. Excess money movement from one expenditure to another, it kind of goes through what I was saying just a minute ago. We just need to make sure that, like you said, for cost purposes, if we try to budget something, let's get that plan going, whether it's a month, 3 months down the road, make sure let's get that going and get that cost set in so that we're not paying for it the next year, it doubles or triples. Because the way the market is, the economy is right now, it's not going to slow down. Everything's going to continue to increase. So just being, I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure that, decreasing it is the right way to go, but we don't need to be decreasing it so much. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Bray, go ahead.
So I agree. You don't need to increase. And thankfully, this last go around, we were able to accomplish all the things I've already talked about without increasing the tax rate. I think that's a big win. I think it's part of our strategy. To answer the question specifically, my answer is no. Our staff worked diligently to put the budget in front of us. They delivered exactly what we asked them to deliver. And in our conversations and working on the budget, they provided us with a balanced budget that addressed deficits, enabled us to tackle much needed infrastructure projects. And that all of that, again, I can't reiterate enough, was without increasing the tax rate. Big win. During the working sessions, we did discuss dropping the tax rate. There were many times that the question was asked, both from the staff and also from fellow council. We invited each other to consider, okay, let's look at this. If we're going to cut the tax rate, what are we getting rid of? Where are we going to drop the funding? Where are we going to adjust the budget to be able to do that? Because there's a relationship between the two, just like you were talking about earlier, Jeff. If you approve a budget and then turn around and cut the rate, well, that budget doesn't make any sense now. So understanding the relationship between the two and being strategic, I think we've been doing that. And I think as long as we continue to do that, like I've indicated, I think that in our future we will be better positioned through the strategy to achieve some of these benefits that we're looking at, like the senior tax freeze and potential tax rate cuts in the future.
All right. Great questions from both of you. The last one is from myself, and we've asked this question for each of the places in the mayoral race. And the question is, how have you served Kennedale and why? This is for Bryant.
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again?
Sure. How have you served Kennedale and why? You go first.
How have I served Kennedale and why? That's a good question. We've lived here for 3 years. My family, we moved from Arlington. I think the why for me is more about my personal story. And I'll try to keep it short, but I served in the Marine Corps 10 years. And during that time, I loved it. I loved everything about it. It took me a little while after getting out to realize what it was that I missed most about it. A lot of veterans will tell you about stories of camaraderie and the passion and the love between your fellow man. And I think that's what drove me to love it so much. And so in discovering that and discovering some of, working through my faith and discovering what it was that I felt I was being called to do with my life is to serve. So when we moved to Kennedale, I quickly started looking for ways to plug in. Met a bunch of awesome people on the Keep Kennedale Beautiful team and went out there, started working in the park. And that just kind of snowballed into getting more involved. And that's where my heart's at. I consider myself to be a servant leader. It's part of my purpose in life. The ways that we serve, I've kind of talked about earlier. Obviously, I'm on council now, running for council again, serve on the EDC, serve at the chamber. My business has adopted a stretch of road in Kennedale to keep it clean. My guys were just out there this morning. So anything that we can do to contribute, give back. We participated in the back to school bash, plan on doing that again this year. Always looking for ways and opportunities to serve the community because it's part of the community that we're a part of. It's our community. We live here. It's our home. It's going to be for a long time.
All right, excellent. Chris?
Why have you served Kennedale and why, or how have you served Kennedale? I've volunteered a few times with, Keep Kennedale Beautiful, picking up trash along, Kennedale Parkway. And on numerous times I've spoken with numerous city officials, Mayor Nathan and a couple of others on some ways to suggestions to keep us safer and obviously to save the city some money when it comes to some of the expenditures. I've tried to serve in Kennedale on official capacity many occasions over the last 18 months. I've applied for the P&Z, applied for the EDC, BOA, Parks Board, as well as the 2 open council positions over the last 8 to 10 months. And unfortunately, I was not accepted or not chosen for those 2 times. I was currently, some I was currently voted in to be part of an alternate on the BOA board. So I look forward to that if I can be. But to date, I haven't been appointed to any city boards or committees, but I have certainly been ready and willing to serve. So I hope to increase that over the years and just try to make Kennedale a better place. So.
BOA is the best board, by the way. All right, guys. I'll give you guys.
Just a little,
I
might
start
be a
a
little
little biased, but it's the best board for sure.
biased. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I'll give you both the chance to conclude and just give a summary. Just make sure you include how people can find you or get a hold of you during this election season. We'll start off with Chris.
Okay. Well, first of all, I truly believe that our city council decisions with the city size we have has a major effect on the daily lives of our residents. And more importantly, our generations to come, whether it's our kids or grandkids, our neighbors' kids, whoever it is. Like we talked about earlier, decisions now have a very, very long-term effect. We're still paying for decisions from 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago here in the city of Kennedale. So we got to keep that in mind that this is not a two-year process. This is, a 10-year process and even beyond. So got to keep that in mind. My priorities, my personal priorities as a city council member would be to improve the completion time of some of our delayed infrastructure repairs to save us money, increase and improve our new current business development, provide oversight to avoid the wasteful budget allocations and city spending, along with more transparency by the city council and our city officials. I'm committed to making us Kennedale a better city to live and work and operate, and just as important, run a successful business. Over the next month, I look forward to meeting as many of y'all as I can, discuss your ideas and concerns, and obviously go over my key priorities for the Kennedale future. As a community, I think we need more community common sense in our leadership. And therefore, I ask for you to vote for me on May 4th. I can be reached. It's not quite up yet. I'll be here in the next day or two. Chris Gary for Kennedale.com. I do have a Facebook page. It's Chris Gary for Kennedale City Council. So visit one of those two. And I don't know, do we normally give out phone numbers? I can give out a phone number.
It's up to you. Some people have so far. Absolutely.
Okay. Cell phone. My cell phone number is 682-564-5146. I'll answer that as much as I can. Please give me a call or a text, and I'll be more than happy to get back with you and answer any questions about my vision for Kennedale. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Bryant. Appreciate the time this morning. Thank you very much.
All right.
And
right.
happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. Just to, my primary focus, a lot of things that I've discussed are again, just economic development, accountability, and community. And I've always said, I'm here to put the unity back in community. How you do that is linking arms, getting out there and doing the work. We're, like I said, part of our purpose. We're a young family looking to plug in, and we're here. We're going to be here for the long haul. What I bring specifically to the table is strategy, planning, focus on economic development, those kind of things. So looking forward to engaging more with the citizens. We've got, a bunch of things on the horizon. We're going to have our kickoff party and meet and greet coming soon. That'll be published on our website and also on our Facebook page. If people want to hear more about who I am and what my focuses are, they can check us out, BryantGriffith.com. They can find us on Facebook as well, Bryant Griffith, City Council Place 4. And they can call me anytime, as always. And I'm at 682-201-7600. And we're just looking forward to hosting that meet and greet and being able to answer questions, share our story, and just kind of hear from the community what they want, what they need from us.
All right, I'd like to thank both of you for being on the show. Out of all three, I think we got really down to the nitty-gritty of a lot of the core issues in Kennedale, and I appreciate both y'all's questions and answers and for participating. If either one of you need to make announcements for your campaign, just reach out to us. We'll make sure we post those things. And for you, Kennedale, this is the last one for our series. If you reach down in the comments below, you can see the other two. But for the 2024 election, City Council election, this is the last one. So if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to anybody who's running for their campaigns. You can just go back and see them mostly on Facebook. I think everybody is. But for now, this is Jeff Navarez with the Kennedale News.